Hi all, it's Dwayne Theobald here, coordinator of the University Writing Center at the University of West Georgia. What I'm going to be doing today is just kind of walking you through some information about plagiarism and how to avoid it. Of course, recognizing what plagiarism is and giving you some scenarios to kind of walk you through some things that you might encounter as you're writing, both in the class you're currently in and other classes that you'll be taking. I know that plagiarism is not the most fun topic in the world to talk about, but I do recognize very much so that it's a very important thing to understand and to be able to recognize and kind of have in the back of your mind as you're moving throughout any class where you're writing, regardless of whether it's a short discussion post, a short response, or whether it's a full-fledged analytical paper for a class. So let's dive in. So to give kind of a definition, I think is probably the best place to start. Plagiarism can be defined as using the words and or ideas of someone else without giving credit to the source or sources that you're utilizing. When we write a paper, really of any sort, it's great to have your own original idea, your own original argument. In many cases, that is a necessary component, possibly the most necessary component of writing a paper. But the really other part of it too that you have to keep in mind is you have to have other sources and other ideas available to you to help support and bolster and give more credibility to your own original idea or own concept that you're discussing. But anything you pull in from those other sources, you have to make sure to provide citation for and to give credit to whoever wrote that information. Also keep in mind, if you unintentionally plagiarize, that is still considered plagiarism. This is often a case when you're working on a paper, you happen to just not cite a source. You've cited everything else looks the way that it should. Maybe you forget to have a parenthetical citation for one instance or a footnote or an endnote for something. Oftentimes those things can happen. If you do that, that can still be considered plagiarism, and professors can take action on that. One of the things to keep in mind is that some professors will be easy on you and let you fix it, maybe take off some points, maybe not take off some points, but there are some professors who might be a little more serious about it. So just keep in mind when you're going throughout your paper, when you're giving credibility to your sources, make sure you dot all the I's, cross all the T's, have all the citations that you need to have so that you don't potentially fall into this category. And plagiarism can also be defined as making up sources, turning in work done for another class, or receiving excessive assistance. It's all forms of academic dishonesty, and there can be penalties associated with them. Making up sources, I know that seems completely insane to talk about, but it does happen, as crazy as it is to say. So if you don't ever feel as if you need to make up a source just to try to, just to include on a paper because you have to have something. Turning your work done for another class, you of course can't do that. You can't recycle a paper from one class to the next. The university has a pretty clear policy about that. And also receiving excessive assistance, that can be problematic as well. Another way to think about excessive assistance is excessive collaboration. Excessive collaboration, I won't read this entire paragraph to you, but to kind of codify it, excessive collaboration tends to occur when you are working with another person, maybe let's say it's a classmate. You're working with a classmate and you're exchanging ideas, you're going through different things you're working on in your paper, and the result of all of that idea swapping, brainstorming, discussion results in you taking ideas and taking concepts and taking things from that other person and using them and passing them off as your own. What often happens here is when a professor is reading your paper, they notice a major shift in tone or a major shift in the way that you're discussing something. One of the things to keep in mind, and I may mention this in a few minutes as well, but your professors get to know you as a writer, especially if you're in a class when you're writing a lot. So if they notice a major shift in tone or a major shift in the way something is being phrased and it doesn't sound like you, it could be a multitude of issues that pop up, but it is possible that it could be an excessive collaboration issue. Now, by me talking about this, I'm not saying you should not collaborate with your classmates or your peers. You absolutely should. You should, a lot of professors actually set up time in class periods or out of classes for you to do peer review, where you dedicate some time to really work with someone and get feedback and give feedback. But you have to be mindful that you want to make sure that what you're writing is truly you, is truly your own ideas, and you're phrasing things in a way that would be appropriate to you. Also keep in mind, if you utilize resources on our campus, such as the Writing Center, you don't have to worry about excessive collaboration occurring because we're never going to allow you to appropriate ideas or take things from us word for word. We're never going to, for example, give you a thesis statement because we want to help you develop your own thesis statement and come to your own conclusions. Plagiarism penalties. This is probably the least fun part of this presentation. If you plagiarize, there are things that can happen. And again, it really just depends on what the instructor or what the professor chooses to do. Every incident is subject to review by the instructor or professor, and the penalties could include failing an assignment, failing the course, or being referred to the Office of Community Standards. They're an office on campus that deals with disciplinary cases, plagiarism cases, things like that. And when you go through some of these steps, the result could be you could be expelled, you could be suspended, you could be disciplinarily removed from the university. I've been at West Georgia long enough that I've actually seen students go through all of these different steps. It is not fun. As someone who has taught classes as well, I have had students that have plagiarized, and it is not fun at all. I would much rather read a paper that is truly a student's own original ideas, and those ideas just be okay, and there be the potential to work and improve, rather than to get something and it be plagiarized in any degree. So bottom line, end of the day, my best suggestion would be for you not to plagiarize. And I'll be honest with you, in my experience, plagiarism tends to come up when students get in a bind and they have a lot of things to do. Maybe you have 2 papers and 2 exams, or 2 papers and 1 exam all within the same week and a half, 2-week period, because that tends to be the way it happens, especially at the end of the semester. And you're in a rush, you're in a bind, and you just need to get something turned in. As a professor, and I don't know how other professors would feel about this, but as a professor, I tell my students all the time, come to me and ask me for an extension. Ask me for more time. I would rather you do that than try to pass something off that is not you. And then we have to go down the road of, okay, you plagiarized, here are the next steps, because those next steps are not fun for me, and they're not fun for my students either. So bottom line, don't feel as though you need to plagiarize. Don't let that even be a thought. Also keep in mind the university has student conduct policies, a whole student handbook. I'm not going to click on it and go through it here, but do know that it's available should you ever have any questions. Okay. Also keep in mind, if all the things I've talked about isn't already enough to consider, there is software that exists that can be utilized to detect plagiarism and originality. Things like Turnitin. I tell my students all the time that Turnitin is, of course, available to kind of double check your work to see if you're actually giving me original content, and if you're citing things correctly, I can drill down and see that. But also, I like to tell my students that I use it as a way to give them feedback. It's easier for me to grade. But also make sure that you're aware that your professors, again, do know you. They know you as a writer. They know their own content because they are content experts in what they're teaching. And if something seems off to them, they're going to make note of it and possibly have to do some digging. I can tell you right now, because I've had a case of this, I believe it was this last summer, I had a case where I had a student who was plagiarizing, and I couldn't catch everything through Turnitin because not everything was run through Turnitin. Some of them were from discussion boards. And I had to spend time drilling into the student's work and Googling and looking for things because it didn't sound like the student. And of course I found where the information came from, but all of that time was not fun at all. No professor enjoys having to look through that. So again, recognize that professors have Turnitin and things like that to help catch originality. But they also know their stuff too, and they can go about utilizing other tools to find something that might seem a little suspicious to them. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to transition into a series of scenarios, and I want to kind of talk through these and kind of just give you some things to think about and to kind of consider and kind of have in the back of your head as you're going throughout your writing and you're thinking about what needs to be cited, what needs to be in quotation marks, things like that. So for the first one, if a fact is general knowledge, like the boiling point of water or the years of Queen Elizabeth's reign, there's oftentimes confusion about whether you need to cite it, you don't need to cite it, or whether you need to have the source in your references, or whether you don't need to have the source in your references. All the other scenarios I'm going to give you are going to be much more clear-cut than this. But if a fact is general knowledge, the thing you want to keep in mind here is what general knowledge means in the context of your class. So I'll give you an example. If you are in a psychology class and you are writing about a particular theory, you're writing about a particular psychologist, And there are concepts around that particular topic that you've discussed in lecture, have been discussed in other assignments. If you include some of that information in your paper, you probably won't need to cite it because it's a part of the general knowledge or the general context of what your class is about. So that wouldn't be necessary. Now, switching gears a little bit, let's say you're still in that psychology class working on that paper, but you're in a history class at the same time. There's a particular historical movement or a particular event in history that really pairs well with a psychologist that you're writing about or a theory that you're writing about. The information from your history class that you would use for the psychology class, so the history information to psychology, that would need to be cited in your psychology paper because that history information is not common knowledge for the psychology class. You would have had to have found that in a textbook or in lecture notes or somewhere, and you would need to make sure it's cited for the psychology class. Bottom line, it really boils down to context. Consider the context that you're in, consider where that information is from, and if it's not from the class you're currently in, where it's a part of the class ethos, so to speak, then you want to go about making sure to cite it. And of course, in instances like this, sometimes there's going to be some muddy water with general knowledge. This case, this whole slide, me discussing it kind of proves this point. One of the things I always recommend is if you have something and you aren't sure whether you need to cite it, go ask your professor. And they will let you know whether it's necessary or whether it's just going to be extra work and it's not going to be necessary. Okay, so the next one. If you change the words of a sentence or passage but you preserve the main idea, there's often the question of whether you need quotation marks or you don't need quotation marks, or you need a citation or you don't need a citation. The key thing to keep in mind with this scenario is if you're changing the words of a sentence or passage, but you're preserving the main idea, that's paraphrasing. It is very possible, and this is true for a lot of writers, you read something, you love what that particular article, you love what that particular critic has to say about a topic, but you don't like the way it's said. I often joke that I can read something and I want to boil it down into Dwayne speak. I don't want to put in the quotation for someone who has, 2 masters and a PhD. I want to boil this idea down into Dwayne speak and I want to put it into my paper. You can do that. You can paraphrase. But if you paraphrase, you don't need quotation marks. Almost think of those quotation marks as handlebars. You literally, when you want to take something word for word, you grab a hold of those handlebars, you lift that information out of that article, out of that text, and you move it into your paper. And the quotation marks serve to let your reader know, this is not me, this came from this other source, but I'm putting it into my paper and into the context of my argument. So if you paraphrase, you never need to have quotation marks, but you do still have to have a citation because even though you're paraphrasing, things aren't word for word, those ideas are still yours. The key thing to keep in mind is you're preserving the main idea. If that idea is not you, you have to have the citation there. Okay, so if you're presenting your interpretation of another writer's ideas, do you need or not need a citation for your thoughts, and do you need or not need a citation for what came from the text? This scenario might seem a little crazy, but I bring it up because we get asked about it in the Writing Center sometimes. If you're presenting your interpretation of another writer's ideas, you never need to cite yourself. You just don't. Because largely a paper is going to be your argumentation and your interpretation about your topic or about your argument. You don't need to cite yourself. If you had to cite yourself, you would have a citation after almost every single sentence, and that would be really, really cumbersome. So don't ever feel as though you have to do that. But if you do get information from another text or several texts, you of course want to have a citation for that information because the information from those other texts is not you. Now, the fact is not general knowledge. In this particular instance, I want you to pay attention to the 2 examples I have here. So if a fact is not general knowledge, like the population of a town in Albania or the number of trash cans on campus, would you need or not need a citation, and would you need or not need the source in your references? So, non-general knowledge, again, look at the examples here. The population of a town in Albania. Well, first of all, you would have to drill down what town in Albania. And I often joke, if you happen to know somebody who knows all the population of every town in Albania, I want them to come and do trivia with me because we would do very well. So you would have to look that information up. You would have to find that information somewhere after you narrow down which town. And then the number of trash cans on campus. I don't really know anybody on campus who knows that, and I've been on our campus since 2006. So I don't know it, but I guarantee you could probably find it somewhere. You could look on a website somewhere. You could call someone in facilities, and I'm sure you could get that information. So for something like that, that is super specific meaning, and you'd have to find it somewhere. So it's not going to be general knowledge. So in those cases, you do need a citation to let your reader know in your paper where it came from, and then you will need to have that source in your references. Because keep in mind, anytime you cite something parenthetically, you do want to make sure that you have that source in your references as well. Now, let's say you list a source in your references, works cited, or bibliography, and you quote directly word for word from it. Would you need or not need quotation marks, and do you need or not need a citation? Now, a couple of things I want to talk about here. So I put the words references, works cited, and bibliography. I list those out because those are essentially the same thing, but depending on what style you're working with, they're called something different. So in APA, that last page where you have all your references, or you have all your sources, it's called a references page. MLA, it's called works cited. So again, all of those words mean the same thing. They're just called something different depending on what citation style you're working with. So if you list something on that page and you quote directly word for word from it, as I mentioned earlier, you always need quotation marks. Again, think of it like you're grabbing a hold of those quotation marks, you're pulling that quote out, you're moving it into your paper, and you're putting it in place. Keeping in mind, when you put that quotation in place, you have to have some kind of introduction, some kind of lead-in phrase to let your reader know, hey, I'm moving from my ideas to this particular critic's ideas, here's the quote. And then after the quote, you have follow-up analysis or explanation for how that quote relates to your argument. So you want to make sure to keep all of that in mind. So you quote something directly word for word, you have the quotation marks there, and you do make sure to have the citation there because, again, that quote that's word for word is not you. And you want to make sure that it's given, you give credit to whatever critic, author, what have you, that wrote it. A couple other points I want to make. So sometimes when you're working on an assignment, it is possible that you may feel inclined to include some summary. Maybe you've read a summary out of a text or out of an article, and you want to include that summary within your paper. While providing summary, you can often give clarity. If you do summarize something really, really closely, let's say you paraphrase a little bit, do give credit to what text you got that from. But also keep in mind, sometimes when you think summary is necessary, it's not always necessary. One of the things that I teach a good bit is film, and I have students oftentimes when they're writing about a film in a paper, they give me a 2-paragraph introduction. The first paragraph is a summary of the film, and the second paragraph gets down to the argument itself. I tell students all the time I don't need a 2-paragraph introduction. All you usually have to do is give a little bit of context for what your text is about, and then begin to narrow yourself down to what your argument is going to be, what in most cases, your thesis statement will be. Now, there could be some cases where having summary is appropriate, and if your professor tells you outright you need to summarize X, Y, Z in your paper, do it. Make sure to give credit to sources if you do look up information to summarize. But also, if you feel as though you need to have summary and it's not clear whether your professor's okay with it, go ask them for advice and suggestions, and I'm sure they'll be happy to help you. A few final tips. Be aware of what you read and, of course, what you choose to use in your paper. This really boils down to source evaluation. Make sure to give yourself enough time to find sources that are going to really help you and really help support your argument. It's going to sound really nerdy, but there's nothing better than to have an argument crafted and find that one source or those 2 sources that just really gel and really do for you what you would like for them to do. It's a really good feeling. If you're ever in doubt whether to cite something, I would say cite it, but of course don't hesitate to check with your professor. Don't hesitate to check with a classmate. Always feel free to check with a writing handbook or a citation style handbook. Utilize the Writing Center, will help you out. And of course, it's better to be safe than sorry. I would much rather you go ask for advice from somebody about how to cite something, whether to cite something, than to go rogue and not worry about it and potentially plagiarize when you didn't mean to. And of course, know there are resources to help you. EDLE at Purdue is a great resource. I always advocate for students to use it. If you don't have this bookmarked on your desktop or your laptop, I would have it bookmarked and just have it available anytime you're drafting or proofing, editing, whatever it is that you're going to be doing to your work. And of course, utilize professors, your peers, tutoring services like the Writings. All right, and before I wrap up, I do want to make a quick plug for the University Writing Center and our services. We are physically located in TLC 1201, so if you're physically on our campus, we're located in the TLC Building Technology Enhanced Learning Center, room 1201. Easy way to know where we are if you're looking for us on the first floor. There is a big mural that surrounds our entire entryway. I like to tell students that, just in case they're looking for us and forget the room number, there's always an easy way to spot us. Do know that you can utilize our services for any class and any writing assignment, and I really do like to emphasize this because a lot of people think we're only here to help with English papers, which again is our bread and butter. It's what we help out with the most, but we do help students out with any kind of other writing assignment. It can be at any point during the writing process as well. Don't think that you have to come and see us and come utilize our services when your assignment is finished. That's just not the case. We can help you out with really anything else. Any writing assignment, anywhere you are as you're writing it. It can be finished, you can be halfway through a draft, or you can be all the way at the very beginning of your assignment, and you want somebody to sit with you and help brainstorm and give you some suggestions before you get too far into a draft. We can absolutely do that as well. Do let us know what we can help you out with, though. If you have a specific question or concern, give us a heads up as to what that is, regardless of which mode you utilize, and I'll talk more about that in a second. Just let us know really what you're looking for, what's going to help benefit you the most as you move throughout your assignment, and we will do our very best to help you and help answer that question and give you resources, in many cases, that will help with that. Do utilize us before it's urgent. You all are graduate students. I don't imagine you'll be working on something the day before it's due or a couple hours before it's due, but my suggestion is try to give yourself a little bit of a buffer between using our services, getting feedback from us, and then going to turn the assignment in. That way you have as much time as possible, or a good amount of time, to take into consideration any feedback, any suggestions, whatever it might be that we might offer to you for that assignment. We do a lot of things to help you out. The only thing we do not do is we do not copy edit, meaning if you need help with a grammar issue, we won't go through your assignment and just fix it for you, but if we do happen to notice that you struggle with commas, we notice that you have issues with passive voice, we notice that you have issues with run-on sentences or something like that, we will do what we can to address those for you and help you out so that you can improve as you move forward. And again, I mentioned just a minute ago, we in many cases can direct you to resources that will help. Now, because we are existing in a very strange time, we're still dealing with COVID in the middle of a pandemic, we are offering our services in multiple ways. You'll see all three of them listed here. We are offering limited face-to-face sessions. I know for some of you in this particular program that may not be possible, but if it is and you would like to take advantage of that, you can stop by our office, give us a call at the phone number on the screen, or you can email us and we'll get that set up for you. We are also available via asynchronous paper review. There is a coursed in location that everyone going into the spring 2021 semester will be enrolled in. It's the University Writing Center Online Consultations Spring 2021. You'll have the ability to submit an assignment through there, through the available Dropbox. Give us some information, we'll review it and get the feedback to you in 48 hours or less. And again, it is a maximum of 7 pages per submission. Or if you would like to schedule a synchronous video session, we use Collaborate Ultra. We schedule the appointment. You're set up with one of our consultants on a certain day and time, and they will sit and chat with you, go over your work with you. You can share your screen, they can share theirs. And again, it's honestly the closest thing to physically meeting with someone face to face. Again, you're just going to be doing it over the computer. And the hours and availability for our services are on our website, which I will get pulled up here. So on our website, you'll notice that, and again, our website is wesca.edu/writing. On our website, we have this lovely gray box here at the top of our website, on top of our homepage, excuse me. This provides all of the information for all of our services, all the different modes that we're operating in. So you'll see here the days and times for face-to-face, the days and times that the asynchronous paper review will be open for you to submit. And of course, here are the days and times available for the synchronous video sessions. And one thing I do want to make note of, you'll note that we do have, again, I know this might be applicable to some of you that are listening, we do have Sunday hours from 12 to 5. You can sit and meet with one of our consultants on Sundays, they'll do a synchronous session with you and be happy to help you out with really anything you're working on. So do keep in mind, again, this information on our website. Again, if you scroll down a little bit further, all of our contact information is here. You can always reach out to us, and we'll help you out really in any way that we possibly can. And then, of course, to wrap up, here's the rest of our contact information. So again, our location, our office, the phone number and email address, our website, which I just pulled up for you. Again, visit our homepage, see our hours. We will have an advertisement ready for spring. It is just not quite ready yet. I'm actually recording this at the tail end of fall semester. So we don't have the advertisement quite ready, but I'll make sure that it gets in your professor's hands so that they can have it and make it available to you. Also, follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Again, really good places to kind of keep up with what we're doing. If we offer any one-off workshops, which we will offer some, we are going to offer 2 APA workshops, and I'll make those available to you all as we get into the spring semester. Again, good places to kind of keep up with information like that is on our social media. And of course, you'll see here on the screen is my office number and my email address. I am more than happy to answer any questions for you that you might have at any point during the spring semester. You can always reach out to me by phone, and you can reach out to me via email. Email, I'll be honest with you, is the best way to get a hold of me. If I'm not always physically sitting in my office, I do have my phone on me. I will be more than happy to answer emails pretty quickly, even if I'm not physically sitting at my desk. I can absolutely help you out. The last thing I want to leave you with is just a little note about the semester. We are existing in a really strange time right now where things are stressful. Again, as I'm talking right now, the vaccine is a thing. It is being distributed, I think, in little bits here and there throughout the country, and it's been distributed elsewhere across the world. Again, things are looking hopeful, but there's still a lot of stress. There's still a lot of things that are going on. We're still having to social distance. We're still having to wear masks. And with all of that in mind within your own personal lives, you also are having to think about putting all of that into context with your classes. And I know that can be really stressful and challenging. It's challenging for me as someone who teaches and runs the Writing Center. But what I can tell you is that as a student here at West Georgia, pretty much the entire campus community is doing what we can we're doing what we can to make our services as available to everyone as possible, and that includes all of you. So do take advantage of our services and other things that are available to you. Stay in contact with your professors. Again, all of these things will help you succeed in a normal semester, but especially help you succeed in a semester like the one that we're experiencing right now. So do take care of yourselves. And again, if there's any way that I can help you out or the University Writing Center can help you out, please let us know. We'll be more than happy to assist you. Take care and thank you.